Discover how to find unshakable peace even when life feels completely out of control. It was 3:14 a.m. I remember staring at the ceiling, my heart racing, my chest tightening, and a question repeating in my head like a hammer. What if this is it? What if everything really falls apart? I had just lost my job. Not because I was lazy, not because I wasn't performing, but because the company downsized overnight, and I was a casualty of someone else's spreadsheet. I had rent due, I had groceries to buy, I had people depending on me. And at that moment, barefoot in the dark, alone, gripping the sides of my bed, I felt like the walls of my life were closing in, like everything was spiraling completely out of control. But then something strange happened. I walked to my bookshelf, shaking, pulled out a tattered, almost forgotten book, and read a line from Epictetus. "You may fetter my leg, but my will remains free." I didn't fully understand it then, but it hit me hard, and in that exact moment, something cracked open inside me. I didn't feel peace, not yet, but I felt the possibility of it. And if you've ever felt like the world is crashing around you, if you've ever been blindsided by life, you're about to learn something that will change how you live forever. Because I'm not here to tell you to stay positive. I'm here to show you how to build unshakable peace from the ashes of your chaos. And it starts with a truth so few people dare to say out loud. You are not in control of most of what happens to you, but you are always in control of how you meet it. Let's put that to the test. Imagine this. You wake up, your phone buzzes with a text, and suddenly your stomach sinks. A family emergency, an unpaid bill, a betrayal from someone you trusted. Your nervous system flares up. Your brain starts forecasting 100 disasters. You feel that heat in your chest, the panic crawling into your limbs. Now freeze. Right here is where Stoicism shows up, not as a philosophy for monks or marble statues, but as a shield in the middle of your emotional war zone. Because the first lesson you and I must tattoo on our minds is this. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Epictetus. Sounds simple, right? But how many of us actually live this? We worry about things far outside our control. What others think, the economy, the weather, the past. But Stoicism cuts through the fog like a sword. It says, you only need to focus on your thoughts, your actions, your choices. Nothing else. And I know, right now that may sound like wishful thinking, because when your life feels like it's in free fall, the idea of peace feels insulting. But hear me, peace is not pretending everything's okay. Peace is realizing you don't need everything to be okay in order to be unshakable. Let me give you an example that changed everything for me. A few months after I lost my job, I was at a bus stop in the rain. No umbrella, no backup plan. I was broke, and worse, I felt broken. I watched as car after car drove by, warm and dry, and I thought, how did I end up here? What did I do wrong? And then this older man, probably in his 70s, walked up beside me, soaking wet like I was, but smiling. And I mean really smiling, like the storm didn't touch him at all. We didn't talk, but his presence said everything. He had chosen peace. I didn't know his story. Maybe he had it worse than me, but his eyes were calm. His posture was relaxed. It was like he'd found some secret. Later that night, I read Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that line slapped me across the soul. That was the man at the bus stop. That's the strength I wanted. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on outcomes. The kind that says, I may not be able to stop the storm, but I don't have to let it inside me. And that became my first practice. Right there, in the middle of my personal chaos. I started asking myself, every time panic crept in, is this in my control or not? That question changed everything. Because when you strip away everything you can't control, what's left is clarity, and from clarity, peace can grow. But the real challenge? It's living that question in real time. When your emotions scream, when fear tries to hijack your soul. That's when you must become the gatekeeper of your mind. Here's where it gets wild. Around that same time, a friend called me in tears. She had just ended a 7-year relationship. She felt abandoned, lost, and terrified of being alone. She asked me, "How do you deal with the silence?" And I told her something I never thought I'd say. You don't run from the silence. You go into it. That's where you meet yourself. Stoicism doesn't teach us to escape pain. It teaches us how to meet it like a warrior, with open eyes, steady breath, and a mind anchored in what matters. So, we sat in silence on the phone for 10 minutes. She cried, I breathed, neither of us tried to fix anything. And something happened. The panic softened, the chaos slowed. She told me later, that silence saved me. And I realized, this is what Stoicism is for. Not just for ideas in a book, but for helping your best friend survive heartbreak, for facing job loss, for surviving 3 a.m. panic. It's for becoming someone who doesn't flinch in the face of chaos, but focuses. And you don't need to be a philosopher or sage to live this. You just need to remember one thing. You are the keeper of your inner world, and nobody, not life, not fate, not misfortune, can take that from you. Let me ask you something hard. If everything in your life collapsed tomorrow, who would you be without it? That's a terrifying question, but it's also the key to real freedom. Because once you detach your peace from your circumstances, you become untouchable. And that, my friend, is where real power lives. That's how Stoicism saved my life, not by giving me easy answers, but by training me to ask better questions. And now, I want you to ask one more. What would it look like for me to choose peace, even when I don't feel safe, certain, or strong? Don't answer it right away. Let it sit in your soul like a stone in a river. Because the next story I'm about to share will take us deeper. Into betrayal, humiliation, and a life-threatening accident, and how Stoicism didn't just help me survive, but helped me rise. How a tragic betrayal and a near-death experience led me to a secret the world doesn't want you to know. It was a Tuesday. I was in a hospital bed, staring at the bright white tiles above me, not entirely sure how I got there. Earlier that day, I had been walking across the street when a car, running a red light, slammed into me. The sound of my bones cracking still haunts me. The blur of lights, sirens, and pain felt like something out of a movie. And just before I passed out, I remember one thought. So this is how it ends? But I didn't die. I woke up battered, bruised, and broken, but alive. And within 24 hours of that accident, as if fate wanted to pile it all on, someone I trusted, someone I called a brother, stabbed me in the back, not physically, emotionally. He leaked private information that cost me a critical opportunity and shattered what little reputation I had left. So there I was, physically immobilized, emotionally gutted, financially wrecked, and deeply betrayed. Most people would call that rock bottom. And I'll be honest, I wanted to rage, I wanted to scream, to lash out, to let bitterness eat me alive. But then, something surfaced, not a quote, not a mantra. A vision. It was of an ancient Stoic, standing tall in the center of a burning city, eyes calm, hands relaxed, saying, "The fire can burn my house, but it cannot touch my peace." And I remembered something I'd read long ago from Seneca. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. I hated that quote at first. Who wants trials? But there, lying in a hospital bed, unable to move, I made a decision. I wasn't going to curse life. I wasn't going to blame others. I was going to train. Right there, in the most powerless moment of my life, I chose to become a student of peace. I began practicing something so radical, Most people won't even believe it's possible. I started welcoming the discomfort. Each twinge of pain in my body, each surge of betrayal in my heart, I treated it like a test, an invitation to prove to myself that I was not a slave to my emotions. I would whisper to myself, "This too is fuel for the fire inside me." And that's when the real breakthrough came. I realized that inner peace is not about avoiding chaos. It's about becoming a force so still, so grounded, that even chaos can't shake you. Let me give you a moment that changed me forever. 3 weeks into recovery, I was alone in my apartment, dragging myself from the couch to the bathroom. Every step was a war. My body ached, my spirit felt shredded. But I stopped, looked into the mirror, and asked myself, what if this is not punishment? What if this is preparation? I stared at my reflection, half-healed, scarred, tired, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Strength. Not the kind you flaunt on social media, not the motivational poster kind, but the kind that whispers, "I'm still here, and I am not afraid." Stoicism taught me that life will test you, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. Because when life feels completely out of control, that's when you meet the real you. The version of you that doesn't need applause or control or even comfort to stand tall. You begin to realize, you are not your bank account. You are not your relationship status. You are not your career or your mistakes or your injuries. You are your choices. You are your courage. You are your mindset in the middle of the fire. And here's the part that still blows my mind. When you stop resisting reality, when you stop demanding that life be different, something beautiful happens. You find freedom in surrender. Not the passive kind, not giving up, but choosing to accept what is, so you can focus on what you can do next. And in that space, peace blooms. I started journaling every morning, not to vent, but to clarify, to write things like, "Today I will not wish for an easier life. I will wish for stronger shoulders. Today I will choose presence over panic. Today, I will meet chaos like a Stoic, not with fear, but with focus." That practice rewired my brain. It taught me that the narrative you tell yourself in crisis becomes the world you live in. So instead of asking, "Why me?" I started asking, "What is life trying to teach me right now?" And the answers came. Resilience, patience, detachment, compassion for others in pain. Because the truth is, everyone you know is fighting a battle you can't see. You think you're the only one spinning out of control? Look around. The mom in the grocery store holding back tears. The kid working 2 jobs while studying full-time. The friend who always says, "I'm fine," but is secretly drowning. We are all carrying invisible wars. And when you begin to master peace, not perform it, but live it, you become a light in other people's storms. That's what happened next. Out of nowhere, a friend I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. She'd seen my injury, heard about the betrayal, and expected to find me bitter. Instead, I told her what I was learning, what Stoicism was doing to me. And she cried. She said, "I'm not sure why, but just hearing you talk made me feel calmer. Like maybe I can face my stuff too." That's when I understood something most people miss. Your peace is not just for you. It radiates, it inspires, it gives people permission to stop spiraling and start breathing. You want to change the world? Start by mastering your inner world. Become someone who doesn't panic in storms. Become someone who others turn to, not for answers, but for presence. Because in a world addicted to outrage and fear, stillness is revolutionary. And listen, I know some of you might be thinking, but I'm not strong like that. I can't just choose peace. But here's the secret, neither could I, at first. Peace is not something you're born with. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, It grows through resistance. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to practice. One moment at a time. One breath at a time. One small decision at a time. To pause instead of panic. To observe instead of overreact. To act instead of complain. And slowly, you'll start to feel it. A stillness beneath the storm. A clarity beneath the confusion. A quiet strength that doesn't depend on life being easy. That's unshakable peace. And it's not some mystical, far-off goal. It's available to you right now, even if your life feels like it's crumbling. Because you don't need to control the storm. You just need to remember, you are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. But here's where it gets even deeper. There's one more layer most people never explore. A truth that changed me forever and may change you too. Because even after the recovery, the journaling, the mindset shifts, I still faced one more brutal test. One that brought me face to face with mortality, meaning, and the single greatest Stoic secret I've ever learned. Why facing death was the greatest gift Stoicism ever gave me, and how it can set you free too. I didn't expect the diagnosis. It wasn't cancer, it wasn't terminal, but it was enough to make the doctor look me in the eye and say, "You're going to need to change how you live, or you won't live much longer." It was a chronic condition, born of stress, neglect, years of pushing my body past its limits without pause. Suddenly, the hospital bed wasn't just recovery, it was a warning. And I remember stepping out into the cold air after that appointment and thinking, what am I doing with my life? Not in a dramatic, existential movie scene way, but in a raw, stripped-down moment of truth. Because when you come that close to the edge, when you realize you've been sprinting through life only to end up inches from the cliff, you start asking different questions. Not, how do I get ahead? But, what really matters if I might not be here next year? And that, my friend, is when Stoicism stopped being a philosophy and started becoming a way of being. See, the Stoics didn't run from death. They studied it. They meditated on it. They embraced it, not as something morbid, but as something that gave life urgency, focus, and beauty. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." At first, that hit me like a punch to the gut. But then, it felt like a key. Because when you truly face death, not just the idea of it, but the immediacy of it, you stop wasting time. You stop obsessing over petty drama. You stop numbing yourself with distractions. You stop living like you have forever. You start choosing your moments like they matter. Because they do. Every conversation, every breath, every act of kindness. It all becomes sacred when you realize it could be the last. And ironically, that's when peace finally landed in my life. Not because I was safe, not because I was healthy, but because I had nothing left to cling to, and therefore, nothing left to fear. Let that sink in. When you let go of everything you can't control, especially the illusion of immortality, you unlock a level of peace this world can't touch. I started living slower. I would sip my morning coffee like it was my last. I would listen to people like their words were a gift. I would walk without headphones, eat without screens. And in those tiny moments, I felt more alive than I ever did when I was winning. That's the paradox no one tells you. The less you try to control life, the more life opens up to you. You begin to see with Stoic eyes. Every hardship is training, every person as your teacher, every day as a stage for courage. I remember standing in line at a pharmacy one day. The woman in front of me was furious, yelling at the pharmacist, furious the medication wasn't ready, furious at the delay. And I could feel the tension, everyone in line rolling their eyes, judging. But I saw something else. I saw a person who probably hadn't slept in days. who might be caring for a sick parent, or fighting her own battle. And instead of reacting, I breathed. I thought of Epictetus, who said, "When someone does you wrong, ask, what pain must they be suffering?" I walked up when it was my turn, smiled at the pharmacist, and simply said, "Rough day, huh?" She laughed, her whole posture changed. And that moment, a simple act of grace. That is Stoicism in action. It's not about being emotionally cold or robotic. It's about holding the chaos of the world without letting it infect your soul. It's about showing up, not just with logic, but with love. Yes, love. Because the deeper I went into Stoic thought, the more I realized something wild. The ultimate Stoic virtue is not detachment, it's connection. It's choosing to be fully present, fully open, fully human, even when life hurts. Seneca wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." And that's exactly what I've been doing, every day, through pain, loss, betrayal, uncertainty. And you can too. Right now, wherever you are, on a crowded train, lying awake at night, scrolling in search of something real, you can decide to begin. To stop waiting for peace to arrive, and start building it inside yourself. Brick by brick, breath by breath. So let me leave you with something that might just change your entire perspective. Imagine this. You're standing in the center of a hurricane. Winds howling, debris flying, people panicking. But in the very center, there's calm. That's the eye of the storm. Still, quiet, unshaken. That's what Stoicism trains you to become. Not someone who avoids storms, but someone who is the eye of the storm. You are not the fear. You are not the noise. You are not the chaos. You are the one who watches, who chooses, who stands still when everything else spins. And I want to challenge you. Tonight, when you lie in bed, instead of scrolling, breathe. Ask yourself, what am I holding onto that I cannot control? What emotion am I letting dominate my life without questioning it? What would peace look like right now, even in this mess? Don't try to fix everything. Just sit with the questions. Because transformation doesn't come from answers. It comes from honest reflection. And if you do this, if you practice even 1% of what I've shared today, your life will begin to shift. Not because circumstances change, but because you do. And that is the Stoic secret the world doesn't want you to know. You don't need the world to be calm in order to be calm. You just need to stop letting the world tell you who you are. The storm will come, it always does. But you'll stand tall. You'll breathe deep. You'll smile through tears. And you'll whisper to yourself, I am the eye of the storm. And that is unshakable peace. If this moved you, if it stirred something ancient and powerful inside you, share it. Someone you love is silently struggling. And this might be the message they need to finally find the stillness they've been chasing. Now go. Live like your soul is free. Because it is.